as usual, please do sign up because I will be kind of working back through attendances and attendees and sending very, very nasty letters indeed. I've just been harder about this year than I ever have, just because I just want to be impulsive and cautious. What you'll find as the lectures go on is that this notion of the alternate weeks, my lecture and the sort of intervening lecture, is that my lectures are a kind of really like one long lecture. They just move. And it's sort of like a continuous, a gradual development of an argument across the whole kind of course. And that's the deliberate, because it's play against people coming in doing the intervention. We'll also see the lectures quite hard today. When you get to the end, you'll realize why. You'll also realize that sometimes one just writes lectures really without knowing what he's doing. I did with it completely. You'll see direction where we are. All right, let's just start into this question. We're really following up what I was doing 2 weeks ago, talking about this idea of expanding the context here, technology beyond technology. Pushing this into now thinking about the artificial, or seeing the technology within the artificial, not as technology and the artificial, but so the artificial now is the real context in which both technology and design occur. But let me begin from an extraordinary lecture last week, which could have easily been a seminar course, in fact, lecture course. Richness, it really was, like a sort of plum pudding of stuff in there. But one of the things that I took from it, there's lots of things, but one bit I'll focus on, pull out and start from today, is that technology in its future, and this seems to me to be crucial to what Ed was saying, is that it offers ways of knowing and misknowing the world. And that in a way that technology has been about that since quite early on. His point today was, I took it, that in fact we always approach the world through apparatus and through models. This was really the draftsman's contract. Models that allow us to grasp the world mentally. Oh, that does help. Yeah.
Thanks.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yes? Good. Okay. So, models are how we attempt to grasp the world, but also, as Ed pointed out, which can actually block our understanding. So at the very moment that we are looking at something, we actually don't know what, we actually misrecognize. There's always misrecognition. There is, if you like, in representation too. Line will come across later, no free lunch. Every representation is also a misrepresentation. With every form of representation, you gain something and you lose something. But this idea of technology as a means of knowing the world, grasping the world, these terms apparatus and model. Apparatus is a means of how we grasp the world, model of the world, are actually very old. They're not new. Here's two examples. An 18th century orrery that attempts to model with using delicate clockwork mechanism the rotation of the planets, the solar system. And these extraordinary tool maps, I'm not quite sure what you can call them, mnemonic devices from Micronesia, which are used by navigators in the islands as aid memoirs for the wind and current patterns between islands. These are the maps that one uses, which one keeps in one's head, navigate Polynesian sailors navigating between islands across the Pacific. Extraordinary objects. So Ed's point, I think, was that technology is, in many ways, this task of enabling and mediating knowing, and that's increasingly what it's about. Now, this bears on what I spoke about 2 weeks ago, and very much on what I want to explore today. I talked 2 weeks ago, used problems with the way that net technologies were working out in practice. We were trying to think beyond technology, not beyond the practice of making, but beyond the concept. My case was, you should remember, that that word technology that we use so ubiquitously belongs to the 19th and early 20th century. It belongs to a certain model of technology, a machinic model, grasped perfectly in the title of Reyner Banham's book, Theory and Design of the First Machine Age, focuses on that early 20th century. And it's the technology that the model of technology that enters into designing in architecture. This extraordinary building designed in 1931 is actually designed as a cathedral. The machinic concept, so the machinic metaphor becoming absolutely dominant. By contrast, I use J-Man to say that technology today is not like that. It's ambiguous. Ambiguous precisely because it's bound with language and the subject in ways that, according to J-Man, verge on the uncanny, and they do so both in art and in life. We're entering onto the age of uncanny technologies. J-Man says we believe we're deft at negotiating this boundary, but in fact we're often left, as he puts it here, grasping at electronic shadows. It is indeed uncanny. Meet Elvis. Elvis, I don't know if any of you have met him, I found him entirely by accident on the net for somebody who would epitomize this. He's a virtual border official who knows if you're lying. He's a lie detecting virtual border official developed by the University of Arizona researchers in collaboration with US Customs and Border Protection. The computer is known as Automated Virtual Agent for Truth Assessments in Real Time, which spells out, of course, Avatar. So it uses sensors to screen passengers for unusual physiological responses to questioning, which can indicate a subject. And we have this object, which is in the article, putting the language in the internet. And this rather delightful thing, which I found here, which is also one of the projects that come out of the Royal College of Art recently. It's a series of projects for children designed to give them the virtual experience of what animals feel. So this is the ant apparatus. And by sensors, both vision and touch, it gives a child some sense of what it's like to be an ant. The ant apparatus, a helmet with gloves attached, displays the world through an ant's eyes. Microscopes in the gloves magnify minuscule surface details to 50 times the regular size and transmit the images to the helmet. There's also a giraffe and so on. Now these strike me, use these two as kind of indications of this kind of virtual realm, but they also indicate two sides of this process. One which would be almost a kind of anti-human process, and the other side being intensely human, this kind of dialectic, which also suggests that neither one is the objective possibility. Now, the technology is bound with language and therefore breaks with, as we saw, the old divides between work and interaction and between instrumentality and dialogical communication. Does not mean that it simply slips over to the side of communication or media. The moves are more subtle than that. It means perhaps rather that technology becomes part of the wider world of symbolic thinking, which means, according to the philosopher Nelson Goodman, that its aim, or more accurate, its utilization in our hands, is towards understanding. This is a crucial, Goodman is biased as a philosopher, this is a very important sentence. The primary purpose of all symbolic activity is cognition in and for itself. The practicality, pleasure, compulsion, communicative utility all depend on this. Now you can see that this has echoes that include it, but go beyond information design. It goes much deeper. Although those of you who are interested in the problem of information design should look at the rest of the quotation. Anybody who's interested in information design should look at that. And since I asked you about that project where you're asked to pull out design criteria from readings, look at the design criteria embodied in this beautiful little quotation. If you're an information designer here, you can read this and pull out no less than 21 criteria for thinking your piece of information design. It's a beautiful piece of writing too. This is how to use language in its rhythms. Symbolization to be judged fundamentally by how well it serves a cognitive purpose, by the delicacy of its discriminations. Listen to the alliteration here. The aptness of its allusions, by the way it works in grasping, exploring, and informing the world, how it analyzes, sorts, and organizes, participates in the making, manipulation, retention, and transformation of knowledge. Considerations of simplicity and subtlety, power and precision, scope and selectivity, familiarity and freshness are all relevant and often contradictory with one another. Their weighting is relative to our interests, our information, our inquiry. 21 criteria there. To create a whole nexus for how to do information design. Now, what we're seeing actually here, especially in those kind of Royal College of Art projects and typical ones that are also some of the kind of ones that you see, there are speculative spins on this notion of understanding. Here's an instance, one of my favorite instances. This is by a guy called Thomas Thwaites. I don't know if any of you know this. It's his delightful project for a bee police. It's actually done as a sort of real, inverted commas, but tongue-in-cheek project, actually with the police. The thematic is this. Pharmaceutical companies are experimenting with farming genetically engineering plants to produce useful and valuable drugs. Currently undergoing field trials of tomato plants to produce a vaccine for Alzheimer's, However, the techniques employed to insert genes into plants are within reach of the amateur and the criminal. Police in genes speculate that, like other technologies, genetic engineering will find a use outside the law, with innocent-looking garden plants being modified to produce narcotics or unlicensed pharmaceuticals. The genetics of the plants growing in your garden or allotment could become a police manor. In Thomas Thwaites' delightful project, which he worked out in some considerable detail, the police used bees carefully from a hive to fly around the local area. Bees don't need search warrants. As they fly back into the hive, they pass through sensors that take a minute part of the pollen on their wings, and they analyze pollen. By actually by being able to track where the bees go, they know where the bees have been, so if the pollen has got traces of illegal activity. This is Thwaites' speculation. It's delightful, it's funny, it's witty, but it's also more seriously this point about that design, one of design's key roles is enable technology to be thought speculative. If you like, to use design, more widely, to use design speculatively to think the artificial, it comes to the same thing. Now these projects now are not just like up there, they are in line with what Herbert Simon predicted back in 1968. One can envisage a future, however, in which our main interest in both science and design is not just in what they do with it, he said, but in what they can teach us about the world. Design, like science, is a tool for understanding as well as acting. The specific world that design can teach us about is perhaps less the natural world than it is the artificial world. So design is, in my view, a means for teaching us about this artificial world that we do not know, by definition that we cannot know until it happens. This is the difference between the artificial and the natural world. The natural world is there, information. It exists. The artificial world, in a way, doesn't exist. It is perpetually out there. And so design is a speculative exploration of what is out there, what is not yet. That's why I say in another sentence, design is the simulacrum of what is not yet, or the simulacrum of what is not. Thank you. Now, this is a Bible ship. It changes the roles of design from instrumental to cognitive. Design is just an agent of marketing, or desire, the design is a speculative tool for thought. In this view, design's agency lies in pushing technology against simple instrumentality and the blind development of technological capacity towards reflection on instrumental possibility and the capabilities that it offers. The importance of this, in a sort of very deep ontological, theoretical sense, could be seen in a line in Heidegger's famous essay Question Concerning Technology, where what Heidegger says, in a line that he cannot quite develop, he doesn't have actually a concept through which to develop it. He says essential reflection upon technology, decisive confrontation with it, meaning technology kills it, must happen in a realm that is on the one hand akin to it, on the other fundamentally different from it. Me designing is that realm, roughly. Heidegger offers art as such a reflection, but we know that art has been a disappointment by and large in terms of reflecting on technology. The reasons for this, I think, are very complicated, but they're partly to do with the fact that art too tacitly accepts the model, the traditional model of technology. Whereas the thrust of Heidegger's sentence demands a practice, if you think about it, that's once within and without of technology. It's not art and technology, where the and indicates separation, as in design and technology indicates attention. It's rather creative reflection within an expanded concept of the technological. Almost the same, but subtly different, I think. Now, this notion of an expanded realm of technology is again not outside of where technology actually is kind of going, the where technology is kind of thinking. There's a good argument to say that technology itself aspires beyond itself, that it is itself its own dissolution. Let me prove this to you, going beyond what people, Kevin Kelly. If you remember in the readings I gave you, Kelly, page 270, has this list, technology wants. Kelly is fetishizing technology as this one, realm, what it wants. Look, he has 13 terms. Stacks them up, look. When you analyze them, look, it's really interesting when you analyze them. Look what happens. Break these down. Only 5 of these unambiguously belong to technology as is, and even one of them contested it. Efficiency, specialization, ubiquity, structure, they belong to technology as is. Complexity, okay, we'll give that. Evolvability, opportunity, and emergence equivocally belong to technology. 5, freedom, mutualism, beauty, sentience, and diversity are in some form of tension with technology as is. Nowhere are they simply given within traditional technology, not at all. So there's a really interesting logic. It appears as if, in Kelly's kind of view, and he's a technology freak, we know, that technology is itself wishing to evolve beyond itself. Now I would say that in fact technology has to, remember Lanier's threefold critique of technology, its capacity to lock us into highly imperfect systems, tendency to slip into consciousness under the radar, evasion of reflection, and above all the ease to which it lends itself to reduction. I would say that too, I don't think these problems can be solved within technology as well. They have to be kind of thought within, to open up locked-in systems, to open technologies to reflection, to counter reductionism, requires something like the design, or even more strongly, it requires us to design technologies such that these moments can be built into the deep structure of technology. A technology which can internalize its own consequences, is sentient about human sentience, that is to say our sense of aliveness, so it is alive to our aliveness, self-comprehends its own ecological impacts. In short, an intelligent technology and a dumb technology. Is this science fiction? Of course it is. But what are the alternatives? The alternatives are not too good. The alternatives are technologies emerging, which are not just life-changing, but potentially life-threatening. Bill Joy, you can find a whole set of quotations in that great paper by him, but they all have the same underlying feeling, that he's very worried about new types of technology, their self-replicating power, their potential destructiveness. At that point, why the future doesn't need us, the title of his paper becomes very, very real indeed. We also know, the other question is too, the other thing here is technologies are emerging whose control is left to who or what exactly. If we think about these new dangerous technologies, who controls them? Alain Badiou, French philosopher. What is to be done about this fact that science needs to know how to make, that science knows how to make a new man? As long as there is no project, meaning there is no ethical or political project, in Badiou's terms, everyone knows what. There is only one answer. Profit will tell us what to do. So Badiou's worry is that these technologies will be simply, in the absence of any other type of project design, the other way of dealing with these, they become subordinate. Or Bill Joy again, he quotes one of his friends here, "The new botany is already aligning the development of plants with their economic, not evolutionary success." So scientific classification the market. And he has another very strong quotation about market forces, how major technologies in the 20th century were largely military and developed in government laboratories, now they're almost